Oh, it's Doctor Who Sunday, and it's time to get a little bit of relief. Hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters.
I crown you Queen of the Woke!
Let's chat about it. After the poor performance of the war between the land and the sea, which at this stage should just be called Land and Sea, it's good to get back to Doctor Who in the classic era. Of course it is. It feels like it should, pretty much, and that is a Doctor Who story. Today we are looking at The Power of Kroll from The Key to Time, which was voted by you, the subscriber. To vote on the current poll, please head on over to the post page after this video is finished, should you wish to, where you can find it. Please let me know what you think of The Power of Kroll in the comments section below, and please, of course, like normal, do keep it friendly in the chat. You're all very good at doing that anyway, so I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. The Power of Kroll was written by Robert Holmes and it aired from the 23rd of December 1978 to the 13th of January 1979. It was, by today's standards, what you would call and define as a Christmas story without worrying about including Christmas and snow and all these dancing fairies in it. It is the fifth installment of The Key to Time before the grand finale, the penultimate story for this particular story arc. This story is set on the third moon of Delta Magna. The story opens on the RV Rutan, otherwise known as Research Vessel Rutan, and the crew were working on the methane mines. Thorne joins them, and the Doctor and Romana, of course, naturally land in the swamps. Romana goes to search for the segment for the Key to Time, and the Doctor remains where he is. Romana is captured and drops the tracer. The Doctor is shot at and is taken prisoner to the RV vessel. The Doctor establishes very quickly that they are on a methane vessel and what the crew are doing. He gives them some tips, and whilst they don't trust him entirely, they pretty much leave him be, which is quite unusual. Meanwhile, Romana is going to be made a sacrifice to Kroll, a mythical being in the Swampies' history. The Doctor can hear everything that is going on outside, and he makes it his priority to go and rescue Romana, as we would expect. We unfortunately don't get to see his escape. At least I don't recall seeing it. I might have that wrong. Right? However, he does save Romana from a Swampy dressed up as a Kroll. Brilliant. The crew of the RV Rutan accidentally wake up Kroll as well. The Doctor discovers a well. He goes down into the well and finds a large history book. In the book, he discovers that it is the history of the tribe. In it, he explains, he reads that Kroll had been awakened and saw that people had become fat and indolent. He became angry and struck them down. He swelled into them the symbol of his power and offed all that were in the temple. The lamentation of the people was so great that Kroll returns to the water where he slept. That was the third manifestation of Kroll, and the Doctor deduces that Kroll is most likely due another manifestation, which we do get almost immediately after. In fact, the Doctor also deduces that a lot of the RV Rutan crew were eaten by Kroll, which is why they were never found. The RV crew have picked up Kroll on the scanner just before Harg is taken off as fish food for Kroll. The Doctor and Romana are once again captured and are sentenced to be offed. They are placed on the execution rack and have creepers attached to them that function a bit like a torture rack. The creeper pulls back as they dry out, and they are underneath a window. It starts raining, and the Doctor is able to somehow produce a high-frequency scream that breaks the glass. The Doctor is able to free Romana and Radat, who is obviously then shortly after taken off by Kroll because he is moving and Kroll is sensitive to movement. The RV Rutan crew are attempting to fire a rocket as well to stop Kroll. Well, Thorne is overseeing that, and he is met with resistance naturally. So he deals with that resistance by himself and then tries to follow through on the rocket. Now, can the Doctor stop them from doing so, firing that rocket, get the fifth segment to the Key to Time before they destroy Kroll and the Swampies? So this is not a favourite of mine. I don't know if that is because I have such a high expectation of a Robert Holmes story. It's a possibility, and I will acknowledge that. I had completely forgotten, though, that Robert Holmes had written for the Key to Time. It's one of the closest in this story arc to a complete sci fi story. That being said, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, I have very few negatives for it. This story sees the return of Philip Maddock as Fenner. I've got to say this, I don't often watch the credits at the end. I just let them roll and finish off writing and whatever. Now, why didn't they just ask him to come in and be a companion at this point, or a main villain adversary? He's been in it several times and he continued to work on Doctor Who throughout his life. It's quite nice to have him in it though. He isn't really a villain in this so much. Quite a few of his Doctor Who credits were villains, whilst his character isn't probably participating in something that should be happening. He wasn't or manipulating situations in any way, going on trial, or participating in a trial, or creating insane monsters at the destruction of a brain. In fact, it took me a couple of episodes to suddenly go, oh, hang on a minute, that's Philip Maddock. Shows you how adaptable to makeup he is as well, actually. Mind you, this is the second time I've also seen the power of Kroll, so it wasn't surprising that I didn't realise it was him at first. And it is good to have him working with Tom Baker again, and it's always good to have him in Doctor Who, full stop. Robert Holmes pulled back the humour in this a little bit for Tom. I think that makes perfect sense. The Key to Time does give the Doctor quite a bit of a comedic streak, which is fine because Tom makes it work and it fits kind of well with his Doctor, I would say. But the comedic streak did need pulling back on. And I know that some of you probably have a few qualms about the comedic streak with the Doctor in this. And having the Doctor leap back into action a bit more makes perfectly good sense. So we thankfully get to see that the Doctor has some great heroic moments in this. This is a mark of a Roberts Holmes story and his complete understanding of what it is within the brief that the Doctor needs to be seen doing. His biggest priority in this is being the hero. That's one of the Doctor's priorities, biggest one. And keeping the companion safe wherever he can. And if the companion gets captured or ends up in any sort of danger, then the Doctor prioritizes saving his companion. And obviously, there's obstacles that he's got to get to and get through whilst he's doing that. We've got some good little jump scares where Romana is taken by the Swampies. They just appear out of nowhere, and the Doctor's hat, well, it gets kaboomed off his head, and he gets carted off as well. The Doctor doesn't know anything about Romana being taken, but when he has a sneaking suspicion that she is the sacrifice, of course, he makes it his absolute priority to save her, even if that means violence. And I don't condone that. Using violence is wrong anyway. I expect the Doctor, though, to make the companion the priority. And he does. What I don't like is that we don't see the Doctor, sorry, escape in order to do this, unless I missed it. And I do acknowledge that that could be a complete possibility. I'm not sure if it was written or not, or if it didn't make the cut, whichever, or it's just my eyes not remembering anything, or my brain not remembering anything. If that's not the case, then it's a minor plot hole. It's not that big of a deal, but I noticed it. All right, let's just put it like that. However, I love the desperation without sounding frantic from Tom. He wants to save her. Tom handles it very well. In fact, Tom handles a lot of the story very well indeed. He is so blasé about the execution rack, isn't he? And passing away, dying, which I think ties in well with the Doctor. It wouldn't surprise me that the Doctor does not worry too much about dying, and not because he can regenerate. Even with regeneration, he can still die. It's more like if you've lived for over 700 years, which he does actually mention in this story, it's something that can seem very minor indeed, I would have thought. And the genius of the Doctor throughout, like in the execution scene, That's clever, very clever. Not execution. Don't like execution. Don't condone that either. But sometimes the predictability in the current Who is way too much. It makes it mundane. This is the situation that he is in. No sonic screwdriver. Both he and Romana are tied up. Plus, their only ally is K9, who is held, well, not held to ransom in the TARDIS, but he's blocked in the TARDIS because of the swamp. So, how is he going to get out of it? Never in a million years did I expect to see the Doctor to create wave frequencies with his voice. It might have happened in a story that I haven't seen, that's a possibility, but it just came out of the blue. This is why I argue for not having the sonic screwdriver, because it allows for the creativity. And I won't deny that it is more than just a bit bizarre having the Doctor make that kind of sound. It's a bit weird, but I'm here for it. You'll notice it isn't a plot device that other writers have frequented, though. Maybe because it was more than just a little bit odd, but hey, it worked for the story. It's still a genius move by the Doctor because they are in peril and having their bones pulled and cracked, and that's not a great way to go. And they have no other friends that can save them. In fact, that whole scene is probably my favourite scene in the story, along with the history book scene. Now, I have been talking about information dumps, okay? Great big information poops with the current spin off. This is also an information dump, so I'm bringing it up. The War Between the Land and the Sea info dump was a very long scene. It was probably about, I don't know, 5 minutes. I don't like information dumps being done like that. In fact, this information dump for the power of Kroll is probably less than a minute. It wasn't too long, and it was essentially Kroll has appeared 3 times before. It often loaded the people before returning to the water, and we are due to get a Kroll manifestation. This all ties in with the earlier plot point of the RV crew picking up something on the large scanner, and also the Doctor is able to figure out that is where the crew have disappeared to because the crew have lost a lot of their men and they don't know what happened. And all with that, in that like 1 minute or less, we know exactly what Kroll is about and that he has appeared before the Swampies and he is coming back, which shortly after we do get to see. And we get to see it more than once. What a fantastic couple of shots we get, which also explains why some of the other stories from the Key to Time have the special effects pulled back or are pretty much non-existent. They spent a lot of money here for this one, I think, and it does pay off. Kind of makes me wonder if Robert Holmes dove into Scandinavian folklore for this and based Kroll on the Kraken, but renamed him Kroll because the basis for it was slightly different. The shots of Kroll is kind of, well, it's Carnival of Monsters type of shot, a scaled overlay. You can tell that's what it is. Obviously, it's a time period that they're working in. They don't have the resources that they do today, but it still works and creates the effect that you are wanting to get, and it's really well done. We get some pretty good jump scares with Kroll. Kroll is determined to give us nightmares. Thank you. That cliffhanger with Hug being dragged off into the pipe by Kroll is excellent. I must say that the mechanics of that, be it the staging, some kind of puppetry, or the acting, really did make it look like he was being dragged into the pipe. Very cleverly done. Kroll is also being very unpredictable. He senses that those movements and reacts on that, and that leads to some fantastic shots as well at the end of part 3 when the Doctor and Romana are escaping. Those jump scares overshadow, unfortunately, the first cliffhanger when Romana is a sacrifice and we have those giant pincers moving towards her with the fake Kroll and the Swampy. Now, part 4 is really where the jeopardy truly begins in this. Well, I say truly begins. Kroll does offer a lot of jeopardy, but this part is like bam, 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 bam. All right, almost New Who like, but better. It's very suspenseful. We learn that Thorn is not all who he is cracked up to be, and would quite happily off the Swampies in order to fulfill the duty of the crew. Was that predictable? Did you get that? I kind of did. I sensed that he wasn't all that he appeared to be at the beginning. In this part, he's quite an abrasive character that is also like a megalomaniac or even an extreme narcissist. He doesn't really have to do all that much, but his desire to overpower people comes into play in this particular part. Thorn gives the Doctor a lot to do in part 4. I wouldn't deny that. The Doctor prioritizes from switching saving Romana to saving the Swampies. Obviously, by that point, he's got Romana, so of course, well, duh, Rachel, state the obvious. But anyway, he prioritizes then saving the Swampies from Thorn. And I don't know if this was a stereotype of just hitting it with a hammer, but the Doctor disables the rocket by hitting the box with a hammer. I quite like it. It's a bit silly and a bit ingenious, but it moves the story along. It got the job done. Hey ho, there you go. Spaghetti-O. Now, we are left wondering on how on earth is the Doctor going to solve the problem of Kroll destroying the base at this point, because by this point he's ripping it to shreds. And this is where I have a negative, and it's a recurring negative that I have about the key to time in general. There has been next to no mention of the 5th segment in this story. It's almost like the writers forget that they are looking for the 5th segment or the segments in this story, and it gets shoehorned in at the end like it's an afterthought. Now, that's not my favourite way of dealing with that, really. However, the fact that the Doctor deduced that Kroll must have swallowed it and therefore had become the 5th segment is pretty cool. That I didn't see coming. And there was no apparent quick resolution. And the fact that there is jeopardy right up until the last few minutes is fantastic. The computer is going to fire a shot around rockets again because it's programmed to do that and it won't stop. So that leaves the Doctor with one final chance to save the day before he leaves. He does something that is exceptionally dangerous, and that is touching electrical wires altogether. Don't ever do that, people. Okay? Don't ever do that. Not that I need to tell you that. The Doctor was thinking on his feet, and he got very, very lucky indeed. What he did was very dangerous. Now, there are just 2 more things that I want to highlight as a slight negative. I think they could have dressed the Swampies in a bit more of a suitable costume to perhaps avoid a side moon. That though is more of a personal preference for me personally. Okay. In the grander scheme of things, it probably doesn't matter. And I would say that perhaps follow up on the beginning point where Thorn arrives and they say about the dot that was coming in. I'm gathering that was the TARDIS, right? I'm not just being completely dumb. I'm guessing that is the TARDIS. Please, have I got that right? Please, Whovians, help me out. Overall though, whilst this is not the best story from Robert Holmes, it does come with what I expect from him: drama, tensions, and jump scares, which will lead us up into the next serial from The Key to Time, which of course will be next week. I will release a Christmas and New Year schedule for you. It may even be up already. I don't know at this point in time of recording. Tomorrow's video will be about the finale for The War Between the Land and the Sea on the Monday. I'm just processing that in my head because I'm recording on a Saturday. This is what I think about the power of Kroll. Please do let me know what you think. Check out some of the other content I have picked out for you. Remember to chat about it, don't shout about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. with the finale review of The War Between the Land and the Sea. Good luck with that, Rachel, in the future. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching today. Don't forget you can join me on my other platforms as well. I've got YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, X, TikTok, Instagram, Locals, Substack, and I also have a Discord. Everything is linked below.